Welcome back again to Excel 1, Day 3. We're very happy to have you here. Again, this is being recorded. I just turned it on, so if you are having a bad hair day, please feel free to turn your camera off. Otherwise, we would really like to see your shining faces, and you may be unmuted because this is a small group. Um, if we are Zoom bound, then we will immediately stop this and take this up at another day. And thank you for being such a cool group and letting us practice with you and being so fast that we are moving right on through. So without further ado, I turn this over to Martin to be our instructor extraordinaire.
Oh, you're a very nice lady. Thank you. What I'm going to do is share my screen again.
Oops.
And I want to kind of show you what I want to talk about today. I'm going to be going over two different topics primarily. I want to look at some additional features within Excel, and I also want to talk about printing. In printing, I could say this in like 2 or 3 words. Left click on the print button and have your printer turned on and see what comes out. However, what comes out may not be what you want. But to get on the other Excel help other features, I want to talk about the help features. Excel has a very extensive and well-built help system. It goes into the Microsoft website, and you can find out just about anything you want to know about Excel. One of the things I recommend when we're talking about using Excel's help feature, try to use Excel's language. You'll get far better results if you use the, what Excel thinks a term is as opposed to what you do. Then I want to talk about absolute and relative cell addressing. I'm going to hold that one off until I get to it, just to kind of get an idea where we're going. Then I want to talk about adding a title across the spreadsheet, and we're actually going to center the title and have the title, completely be an independent cell. We're talking about adding color to the spreadsheet. 2 types of colors we'll talk about. We have a font color, the color of the letters, and we have a background color. So we're going to use both of them. Here again, we might as well make our spreadsheets look a lot more presentable. Then I'm going to talk about adding comments to a cell. Sometimes you may develop a formula, or you may want to have a comment to something, or you may be reviewing somebody else's work where you want to add a comment. So it's like, and you can add a comment to each and every cell you want to. Then we're going to get into, changing the font and the font size. This will primarily be part of the printing side of the discussion. I want to make sure we can actually read what we're looking at. We're going to use the print preview and the page setup. I want to go through each of the pieces of this so that you understand how to set, a document up. And so what comes out of the printer will be exactly what you want. Then we're actually looking at setting the print area. When we talk about that, you might have a spreadsheet would print over many, many pages, and you might only want a very small portion of it. So we can set exactly how much of the print area we want to work with. When we talk about selecting a printer, that's no more than going down and clicking a list of printers you have assigned to your computer. If you're like me at home, there's one printer, so there's only one choice. And then printing the spreadsheet is no more than left clicking on the print button. So that's what I want to talk about today. I'm going to unshare the screen. And what I'd like for you to do is to open up a spreadsheet. I'd like for you to open up Lesson 3, Part A. These are ones that Amy sent out yesterday. And I got the wrong piece of it. This should look very, very familiar from yesterday. This is actually what we did yesterday. In order to access Excel's help feature, and this works with any Microsoft Office product, so you can do it in Word, Access, Outlook, anywhere you want. Just press the F1 key on your keyboard. There we go. Unfortunately, mine went off the screen, so I'm gonna.
We can see that.
You can see that. That's great because right now everybody's picture is covering mine.
Oh,
But that's
I can-
okay. We
see it.
can make it work. The helps feature comes up, and one of the main things you have is a search box up here at the very top.
I'm sorry, Marty. I'm just a little bit slow on this. I'm trying to call up the, what Amy sent us, so my worksheet on
Oh,
the
I'm
same,
sorry.
on the
Go
same computer as, so I want to watch what you're doing. And,
Oh, absolutely. I need you to be in Excel, so go ahead and get that going.
well, I have it I'm not sure how to do, like, is it a split screen then, or how do I see what you're doing and work on my spreadsheet? How are
Once
people doing that?
you've opened up your worksheet,
Mm-hmm.
just press the F1 key, and the help should come right up.
But actually,
no, but how do I see what you're doing and then?
actually, do you know how to toggle between windows, Rosemary?
So you just go back and, so you just keep going back and forth? Is that what you do?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
Okay.
You'll have to go back to the Excel spreadsheet, then come back to the Zoom.
Okay, go back and forth. All right, I was trying to
If
make
you
it.
have a large, if you have a large enough screen, you might be able to display both windows side by
Yeah.
side, but you may
Yeah.
just toggle back and forth.
Yeah, I think that's how it's going to work. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Welcome back, Ashok. We're happy to see you. Marty, can you kind of take a step back so that she's on the right page as well?
Sure. What I was looking to do is have everybody open up an Excel spreadsheet, lesson 3, part A. And once you get that open, then I'm gonna have you press the F1 key. I hope if everybody's ready, I'm going to go ahead. If not, unmute yourself and let me know. You can leave yourselves unmuted all day. I don't care for 3 people.
Probably
what
easier to be unmuted.
Yeah. So when we pressed the F1 key, we brought up the help screen, and that top box is one you can type something in, whatever you would like to type. And I'm just gonna, since we were talking about borders yesterday, I'm gonna type in apply cell borders. And then press enter, and you'll get a whole list of topics from the Microsoft website. And I'm just gonna select the first one, apply or remove cell borders. And what we do with these, I like to look at them and see if there's something in there that will, that I answer my question. So for example, apply a predefined cell border, remove a cell border, create a custom cell border style, and draw cell borders. I'm gonna left click on apply a predefined cell border. And one of the nice things when you get with this, typically you get like a definition that will talk about what you're trying to do. Then you get a little procedure. If you go down a little bit lower, it says apply a predefined cell border.
Marty, I'm sorry. I think I'm going to be your problem child today.
You're never a problem.
I thought, okay, I surely can find this button that he's talking about. And while he's talking, I don't have to embarrass myself, but apparently I can't. So how did you get that little help screen? I hit help, but that didn't do it. I think part of my problem is this back and forth thing, but I'll hang on in a minute. So, okay. So Marty, how did you get that?
Okay. I pressed the F1 key on the keyboard.
Oh, okay. So you just, the F1 key.
It's at the very top of your keyboard. There's F keys go across the top of your keyboard.
Oh, you called that. That's where you had me at. Okay. So I see it up here. Yep. I never used any. Well, I never saw the little F part of it.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No, thank you. That's great.
It-
Sorry
it's,
to, I'm
it's-
going to slow things down today, I'm afraid, but hopefully I'll sharpen
you're
up.
just fine. That's what I want.
Okay, so I hit F1.
Okay, and then up there in the box in the top, I basically typed in apply cell borders, and you see the little search box in the top,
Okay, yes. Apply
cell borders,
cell borders.
and
I'm-
then click enter.
Oh. And I do that in that little where you, okay.
In the-
Okay,
Where the
no.
mirror
No, I'm
type
not.
thing is.
This is where I would need somebody to help me. I'd be one of the. Okay,
This is-
I typed it in the wrong spot. Where do I type it?
There's a little mirror on the left on a home.
Okay, where it says help. Help over there?
Yeah, just underneath the help. There's
Underneath the help.
There's a
an F11.
rectangular box. There's a
Okay, there.
rectangular box,
Mm-hmm.
and just click inside of there, and then
Okay.
start typing.
Okay, and again,
Right
what do
in
I
the
type?
mirror.
I can just type in that little tiny box.
Yep. Sure
That's right
can.
above A?
Right.
Okay.
Right above get started.
See that? It says you must have a valid reference you want to type. What did you type exactly in that little?
I typed apply cell borders. And then I came up with a whole bunch of different topics from Excel, and I selected the first one.
I
Apply
don't
it.
think I'm typing in the right spot. I'm above A. There's where it tells you what cell you're in, and then it tells you where you want to type. And then on the left side, there's help, contact, support, feedback. Where is this window?
Did you get the help screen?
I do. Okay, so go into the help screen first. Okay. Now I see it. Now it popped up. It's all good. Okay.
Very good.
All right. Now I'll be on this. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone.
Not a problem. And then I just typed in apply cell borders, pressed
Okay,
enter,
Yep.
and I clicked.
I'm on.
Let's
Okay.
click on first one. Says apply a cell border.
Okay.
This gives you a little procedure
Yes.
that tells you how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I found out in practice that helps me, especially if I'm getting something that gets a little complicated, is I'll go through and print this whole thing. So I have my little procedure in front of me to go step by step. And let's say this does not do what you want. I'm going to click on the back button. And this will bring me back to all those topics that I had. I'm just going to go down, for example, the fourth one. I hope it's the fourth one on yours. Says use cell references in a formula. So I left click on that, and I get some information about it. And if you notice, you see a little procedure to follow. And there's a whole bunch of different pieces of information. I encourage you to keep looking at different ones until you find exactly what you're looking for. Okay, let's just do another one just for an example. Let's talk in format. If I can type. Format cells. Yeah, you see some of my topics: use conditional formatting, displayed or hide zero values, how to use the forms, text function, keyboard shortcuts in Excel. I'm gonna just left click on keyboard shortcuts in Excel. And you should see some of the things that, for example, I'm going to scroll down. It says frequently used shortcuts. This is basically where I came up with that Appendix C. Is looking through some of these shortcuts and adding a few others that I knew. But here again, as you go through Excel, I highly encourage you to use the terminology that we've talked about so far, and then you'll get a lot better results. Even though I couldn't spell format, I put a foremost or something. So just want you to know that F1 key is there, And this F1 key is going to work in Word, Access, Outlook. You'll get specific help for the individual application you're using. Okay, next topic I'd like to go to is absolute and relative cell addressing. If you noticed when we were copying formulas, I'm going to go up to into the My Stocks cell J6, and in cell J6, it comes up with the formula equals parenthesis I6 times E6 parenthesis minus H6. And what we did is we took the fill handle and drug this down to the next two below us. And I'm just going to select on cell J7. If you notice that everything changes from the 6s to the 7s. And this is what we call relative cell addressing. Excel knows that when we're doing this, that, for example, we know we're going to, the first was I7, so we're going to go to the, I7 cell times the E7 cell minus the H7. And it actually knows which ones, so when we use the fill handle or we copy the formulas, it knows to go down to the next row down. It also would work if we were going across columns. So this is how Excel knows, how to go from one cell to the other. So let's go down on the tabs below to the sheets. I'd like for you to select the absolute relative cell addressing tab. And what I have here is an example where we're going to go to the store and do some shopping. Go buy some socks, shorts, hankies, and shirts. Pretty simple math. If I go over to cell I8, I can see the formula up in the formula bar to calculate the total cost equals G8 times H8. If I come through here and click on the fill handle and drag it down, I'm going to calculate the total cost for each of the each of the items we have. And you notice we go from, in I8 we go down to say to I9, and it automatically adds to I9, 10 and 11. Unfortunately, when you go to the store and you want to buy your pair of socks, and even though the total cost is $8, we have a lovely thing called sales tax here. And when you have something that repeats itself over and over again, for example, the sales tax, the rate would always stay the same. So the idea with an absolute cell address is you type it in one time. And if you take a look at cell C2, we have a sales tax rate of 6% or 0.06. Unfortunately, when you go to the store and you want to buy something, the clerk's going to ask you for not only the cost of the material, but they're going to ask you for the sales tax in addition. So if you look down here at the bottom part in cell I16, we could take a look at that formula. I don't mean to make it complicated, but to explain the first part of it, equals G16 times H16. That is our total cost we had up here in the relative. But we also have to add in the 6% of the total. And if you notice, when we have a absolute cell, it's instead of saying cell C2, you got $C, $2. Anytime you see that $sign, you know it's referring to an absolute cell address. And if I take my fill handle and add in the other formulas, I'm just going to select cell I18 for hankies. If you notice, if you look at the formula here, it's G18 times H18 plus this absolute cell C2, times the total. And the beauty of that is when you use an absolute cell address and you have a constant value, you don't have to be typing that 0.06 every time in a formula. It automatically picks it up. And you put it in anywhere in your spreadsheet, just refer to the cell. One of the beauties of using absolute cell addressing, let's just say that for some reason the tax rate will go up. Never seems to go down. And if I go up into my formula bar, I'm going to edit the 0.06. I'm going to make it 8%. Take a look at what happens down in our absolute cell addressing when I press the enter. If you notice it updated all of those formulas at once. So I could change the sales tax rate and automatically update every formula I have within my spreadsheet. And that's the beauty of only having an absolute value in one cell. And it doesn't matter which cell I put these in. I could put it in any cell within my spreadsheet. This just happens to be cell C2. But when you see this in a formula, you're going to see this, the absolute cell address. So if you were typing this formula out for the first time, you would want to make sure you put those at $sign in front of C, $sign in front of 2. To make sure that referred to that, cell C2 as an absolute address. Anybody have any questions about, absolute cell addressing? This works out the best when you're having a constant value in a formula. I'm going to change my sales tax rate back to 0.06. So we keep, everything looking, the same we had. We will get into this a little bit more, later on within the course. I want to be able to have you use this as an example. But just remember, this is for a constant value when we have a formula. If we don't have any questions, I'm going to go back to the My Stocks sheet.
Looks pretty good, Charlie. Or Marty, I don't see any questions.
That's good. And you guys can unmute yourselves and ask anything you want. I'm happy to do that. Now what I'd like to talk about is adding a centered title. Right now we got this beautiful spreadsheet and we have no idea what it's about, even though we're smart enough to probably figure it out. What I'd like for you to do is to select rows 2 and 3. So I'm going to go over in the row heading. When I get that black arrow, left click my mouse. I want to drag it down to row 3. So I should have selected both of those rows. Now I want to go up to my ribbon where we were yesterday, up in the cells group, and left click on that insert. So we're basically inserting 2 rows. That's all I've done. Don't have a title yet, but what I want to do, inserting those 2 rows moved everything down by 2 rows. So now I have room for my title. So now what I'd like for you to do, I'd like for you to select cells B2 to J3. I'm basically selecting all of the data, all the, the cells above that. We have multiple cells there, but I want to show you a little trick within Excel. If I go back up to my ribbon, which is, I'll be back and forth with there, go to the alignment group. It's mostly to the right side. There's one icon up there that says merge and center. Left click that merge and center. What happened? I know that you're not responding to me, but what happened there is we took all those cells that we had selected and we merged them into one cell. So this is one giant cell now. So let's go ahead and make sure we're in the cell.
I'm sorry, but can you please repeat that?
Sure, not a problem. I'm gonna go backwards. Okay, the first thing I did was I selected rows 2 and 3. And I clicked insert to basically insert those rows. Then I selected the cells above my data, B2 to J3. When I selected those, I went up to the ribbon in the alignment group and I left clicked on merge and center. I've basically taken that group of cells and made it into one cell now.
All right. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'm glad you're asking. And now what I'd like to do is to change the size. If you notice when I'm in that cell, I should have a green highlight around the cell. Let's go up to the font group in the ribbon. Right now it's Arial size 10. I like to make that size 16. So click on that little arrow next to 10 and come down and left click on 16. This way our title will have a little bit bigger characters. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in there stock purchase records. And if you notice as I typed it in there, because I already changed the font to size 16, that our characters are much bigger than they are down in the data. And here again, you want your title to stand out. The other part of merge and center is when we did the merge and center, not only do we make all of those cells into one, but now when we start typing, everything's centered. Here again, typically you want your title centered. Hopefully that it makes sense to everybody. I'm wanting to make this thing look a little bit better all the time. Now what I'd like to do, since we're still in the cell, I would like to add a border around my title. So to do that, you notice your cursor is blinking at the end of the word records. Just go up to the font group and well, I need to get out of the cell and back into it. Now if I go up to the font group, there's a little thing that looks like a square with a grid on it. It's called border. Click on that little arrow next to it for borders. And what I'd like to do here is to go down about a third of the way down, one called thick outside borders. Just left click on that. And as I said before, when you make a change, a lot of times don't see it until you left click outside of that cell. So I left click on that. Now you should see a border all the way around the title. Is everybody with me on there? So now we've added a title, used the merge and center function. So now we have one title, encompasses all our data. I'm going to go back and reselect that cell. So click anywhere in that cell. Should get that green box around there. Now I'd like to add some color. We got this thing that's black and white. Let's get us something that's has a little more color to it. And I'm going to go back up to once I've selected the title, I'm going to go back up into my font group, and right next to that border icon, there's two little icons. One looks like a paint bucket. One looks like the letter A, and it usually has a color underneath it. The letter A is the font color. So let's left click on that arrow next to it. And you guys are welcome to pick any color you want. You can see if you scroll around, you can get all the various colors. I'm just going to pick green. It makes no difference. Whoop, I need to click on it. Makes no difference which one you select. It's whichever one looks the best to you. So now we've added color to our title font. Hopefully we're getting this where our spreadsheets, has a little bit better appearance. The next thing I want to do with color is add color to my data cells. So I'm going to select cells B5 to J10. Select all my data. And here again, as we talked about before, within Excel, you select a cell or a group of cells before you want to do anything to them. So we've selected all these cells. Now I want to go back up to that font group in the ribbon. This time, click on the little arrow to the right of the paint bucket. And here again, if you scroll around, you will get a multitude of different colors. And I don't care which color you pick. I'm just going to pick a light blue. And if I click outside of there, then I get the actual color. We haven't changed any of our data doing this, but we're just adding color and make it the appearance of just a little bit better. So while we're doing that, we might as well go up and add some background color to our title. So go up and select our title, which happens to be cell B2 is the whole thing. And we'll go back to that letter, arrow beside the letter A. And here's something where I want to question you. If you select a background color that's the same or very similar to what your font color is, you'll wipe it out. You won't see anything. If I have to click on the right one. Notice if I do green, you will not see your font anymore. So you need to have some color that contrasts with it. I'm just going to pick orange, even though that's a little hard to see.
That's some contrast right there. Wow.
Yeah. I'll pick a dark blue. So we have a dark blue, green letters, and then our data happens to be a light blue. Here again, I am not an artist, so for me to pick a color is probably not a good idea. But I want you to be able to see that we've actually cleaned up our spreadsheet. It looks a whole lot more presentable. And if you were trying to present this to your boss or you're trying to make something look good, adding a little color, can jazz it up quite a bit. Anybody have any questions on that? I don't want to go too fast for anybody. Alrighty, that's adding color. We're going to do this again and again, but I want to introduce you to all these major concepts within Excel as we go forward. My next topic I'd like to do is to add a comment to a cell. I'm going to select cell J8. I can select any cell I want. And if you right click on cell J8, you'll get a menu. And about almost towards the bottom, there's a command for insert comment. And if I left click on that, you notice you have a little box that comes up with your name. And if your name doesn't come up, it's because you don't have a user identification. You can type anything into this that you would like. I happen to have this. Oop, I need to take my caps lock off. You can type anything you want. I'm just putting something in there to get a little data. There's nothing magical about what I typed in, but to somebody that looks at this later on, they might want to see how I derive the formula. And that's the reason I typed in what I did. You could say, it's a great Thursday. Whatever you want to put in there. And I want you to notice something. When I click outside that cell, do you notice anything still in J8? Should see a little red triangle at the top right-hand corner. Anytime you see one of those red triangles, you know there's been a comment. And you can either hover or click on the cell and it will bring it up. I have found out when I share worksheets with other people, sometimes they'll make a comment doing a review. It's like, you know, what does this mean? What are you doing? Every time somebody adds a comment, it'll come up as another comment, multiple comments with each of their names. So it's a great way if you're going through and doing a review to see what's going on. Okay. Anybody have any comments about, any questions about comments? See if I can speak correctly. I want to show you something as a global function within Excel. And what I'm looking at here, if you notice, is as I have my comment, I hover over it, it comes up and it goes away. Or I could click on the cell, and it's only when I hover does that stay up there. But I'd like now to show you about some of the global options within Excel. I'm just going to highlight one for comments for this example, but I want you to see where these options are so that you can change anything and everything within Excel. So I'm going to go up to the top of the workbook, left click on File all the way at the left-hand side. You will get a series of options. And what I want to do is come down, and at the very bottom, there's one for Options. Left click on that. And then my Excel Options comes up. I've got several tabs over here on the left-hand side. What I would like to do is to left click on Advanced. And you can see there's editing functions. I'm going to scroll down until I find comments. You notice there's a lot of things you can change, and these will make a global change within Excel. Still looking for comments. I may have gone by them. Yeah, here we go. Under the display heading, there it says, about halfway down, says 4 cells with comments. Show like no comments or indicators. If you don't want to have comments work in your spreadsheet, you can click on that one. The one that I had selected was indicators only and comments when you hover. So that's why the only time you see your comment is if you hover over that cell. Or I can leave them on all the time. It's an option, whatever you'd like to do. If I'm going to leave on all the time and select OK, and if you notice now, my comment will never go away. Personally, I don't like this option just because if I wanted to have some more data out here, my comment would cover over my data. So I'm going to go back and reverse that change. File, Options, and here again, if you notice all these little different tabs over here is going to give you a whole set of other options. So one of the things that I do when I like to set up my spreadsheets on a certain type font. Like for example, here we're in general. If I go down here to the Arial, right now it would be size 36. And that's because I changed the ribbon comment. But here again, I'm going to go back to Advanced, move down to the cursor or to the display, and you notice it says comments and indicators are selected. I'm going to go up and go back to the indicators only, comments on hover, and then left click on OK to make the change. Comment went away, but if I hover on it now, it comes right back. There's all those options within File Options are global options that once you apply them, they will work on every spreadsheet you have within Excel. So you can get something, the font that you like to use, the size, set that up beforehand, and anytime you open up a new file, it's going to have that in there. Another thing you can do with comments, I'm going to go back and select cell J8. And this time, I want you to go all the way up to the top of the tabs. We've been in the Home tab so far all our time. I'd like for you to go over and left-click the Review tab. When you're at the Review tab, you notice you got a whole new ribbon, and then you've got a section for comments. You can edit your comment. Here again, click on Edit. I could change that. I'll just add to it. I can add a new comment. Whoop, and it's clicked outside the cell, so I actually put a comment in cell J13, which I should have selected J6. You got to be careful which cell you're in. While I still have J13 selected, I can select Delete. Notice the little red triangle went away. I can look at previous. I'm gonna go back and edit. Can't edit. Add our next comment. So I can edit these. I can show all the comments. If I only happen to have one, you can show or hide the comment. So there's a lot of options up here within the Review tab using the ribbon. Anybody have any questions about the comments? All right, what I'd like to do now is I'd like to modify my worksheet. We have created this wonderful worksheet, and it's really almost virtually a finished product. But I'd like to add a column to my worksheet. Going back to what we talked about yesterday, to add a column, I'm going to go up to the column heading, and I'm going to select column J. And now, if you notice, we're in the Review tab, so I'm going to go back, left click on the Home tab, get my, and then I'll come over here to the Cells group and click on Insert. And I want you to note a couple of things. When I added a column, what I had for gain or loss automatically moved over to the right. But the other thing is, if you take a look at the title moved with it. So if you're adding a column here, you don't have to worry about trying to make your redo your title. I'm going to give this a name, so I'm going to go to cell J5. I'm going to type in current. Press enter. Move down to the next cell and type in value. Press enter. Press enter again. I'm going to be at cell J8. And when we're in cell J8, I want to type a new formula in here. So I'm going to press the equal button. And I'm going to go to cell E8. I'm just going to select it. Notice it's a light blue or darker blue. Times, it's the shift and the key above the 8. And I'm going to go to cell I8. E8 times I8. Here again, all I'm looking at is the shares bought times the current value. Press enter, and I have $2,100. Here again, a current value of $21 times 100 shares. And that's how I've just added a formula. And I'm going to come down here. I'm going to use I want to copy the formulas. I'm going to use the fill handle. I'll copy those two down. One of the things that happens when you use the fill handle and you have formatting in here, if I clicked outside of here right now, I would not have an underline underneath my 9600. Reason being, I copied the format from cell J8 and it did not have an underline. But if you notice a little bitty box just below that and to the right, I'm going to select that box, and you can fill without formatting. So I'm going to select that. Now you notice I haven't wiped out my underline for my border. So I've added a value, added a column, put in a new formula. I want to go now to cell K8. If you look at cell K8, that's got a formula equals I8 times E8 minus H8. That's how we originally calculated it. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to, when I'm in that cell, I can type right over the top of it. And what I want to do is create a new formula. So when I click the equal, everything goes away. I'm going to go J8, which is my current value, subtract out the total cost, the initial cost, H8, press enter. I'm back to $1,075. I've just calculated my gain or loss a different way. So I always want you to see that you can type over a formula, create a brand new formula anytime you want. Okay, anybody have questions about this stock purchase records? I wanted to show you some formulas, how to add color, how to add comments, how to add a centered title. So I just want to kind of show you what we've done to this. We've dressed it up quite a bit. So this would be something you might be more interested in, like in a presentation. So if everybody's happy with what they've done here, I'd like to go up and save this. I'm going to go to File and do a Save As. I'm just going to click on My Documents where I want to send it. If you notice down in the file name, it should say Lesson 3, Part A. Have you click in front of the L in lesson, type in the word My, add a space, and then click Save. And if you look at your title bar, it should now say My Lesson 3, Part A. So now you know what you started with, and now you finished with one that, hopefully it looks a lot different, a little bit better. So that's the first part of this lesson. Now what I'd like to do is completely switch horses and go to printing. If anybody has any questions about this, let me know, and I'll be happy to go over anything for you. If not, away I go. I'm going to go to File and Close, because I've already saved it. And I see Charlie, which is great.
Yep.
Ooh. Now what I'd like for you to do is to go to Lesson 3, Part B. Not sure. Wow. For some reason, I don't have that up. I need to open that file again. I somehow completely closed Excel, so.
Well, it happens.
I'll exit the full screen.
And when I send it to you guys, it probably says copy of Lesson 3, Part B, because I try to save things to my desktop when we're doing these classes so that I can just minimize and find it. Makes my life easier.
No, both of them said copy of. Yep.
Yeah, both of them say copy of. Yep.
And for some reason, I've not added that to my Excel. There it is. I just have to look. What I have here in Lesson 3, Part B, is an address book. And I was telling you before, not everything within Excel has something to do with numbers and formulas. This is going to be an address book with several names. And also I want you to note, as we get more involved with Excel, my spreadsheets are going to spread out far more than what you can see. So if I scroll down, I actually have data clear down to row 49. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean you can't work with it. So since I'm interested in printing this spreadsheet, I'd like for you to go up to the File option on that tab, left click on File, and left click on Print. Several features I'd like to show you about the print screen. First thing, if you notice at the very top, the word print. If I click that right now and my printer was turned on, what you'd see over here in this print preview is what you would get. I find this print preview to be invaluable because I look at it, it doesn't look right to me, which it certainly does not look right now. I would not print, I would correct it. And that's what we're going to do within this part of the lesson, is to correct what we have. Also, I can select my printer. It's right below there. Click on that little arrow. This comes up with all the printers that you have an option to. The only real printer I have is this LaserJet printer. So, that's what it defaults to. Another thing you can take a look at is we can change our margins, all the different settings, print the active sheets. Let's say you had 10 pages and you only wanted to print page, say print page 2, which is not a print 2. I can go print 2 to 2 and only print that one page. I'm going to erase that because later on I'll be wondering why it won't print. If you had a printer that was, print both sides, you could do print one-sided, or you could print two-sided. My printer only has one. You can collate them. You can change the orientation. Right now we're in portrait orientation. If I wanted to change that to landscape, all I need to do is click on that little button. Left click on landscape. I'm going to keep it portrait. Our size of our paper is a letter size, and that just happens to be what's in my printer. I could put any type of paper in I wanted into the printer. I'm most certainly going to keep mine letter size. I'm going to get into margins here in just a little bit and scaling. The biggest thing I want you to see here is this little option down here called Page Setup. And within Page Setup, this brings up a little like a dialog box. It's got 4 tabs on it: page, margins, header and footer, and sheet. I want to go through each one of these to show you how to use them, to kind of, so you'll be able to appreciate what printing can do for you. I'm just going to left click OK because I didn't change anything. And when you're in this print screen, if you want to go back, right now you're not in your spreadsheet, you're in the print screen. If you go back, in the green bar at the very top, there's like a back button. Left click that, and that brings you back to the spreadsheet itself. And the reason I brought you back, and we're going to go back and forth a few times just to, to see what, what changes. First thing I'd like for you to do, I'd like for you to select cell A6 to G49. You can just scroll down, and within G, you can notice the phone numbers stretch over into H, but all you need to do is select A6 to G49. Because what I want to do is change the font and the font size.
And it's important not to include row or column H in that. Make
Correct.
sure you only go to G.
All your data for phone numbers is in column G. So I'm going to, when I go up here and want to change my font, I'm going back up here to the ribbon in the font group. Right now, if you notice, it's selected as Arial size 10. I'm going to left click on the little arrow beside Arial. If you notice, you get a whole bunch of fonts. And if I scroll through it, it's going to change it from one to the other. And what I actually want to change this to is Tahoma. I could spend a lot of time scrolling down to the T's, but there's a nice little trick within Excel. If you notice, the Arial box is highlighted in blue. If I just press the letter T, that'll take me to Tahoma, of all things. It's the first one within the T's. By doing that, you don't have to scroll all the way down. You just, press the letter T. Like for you to select Tahoma, little different font. And then the font size, I'd like for you to make that size 12. Go from 10 to 12. And needless to say, now I've got it where it's not real easy to read the data. So what we talked about yesterday was adjusting column widths. So I'd like for you to select columns A through G. One way you can do this is you select column A and just drag your mouse across to G. And you can either do the auto fit. I'm going to go to Format and Auto Fit Column Width. Now we can see all of our data. It looks a lot better than it did. So now we've changed our font and our font size. I'd like to go back to the print screen. So we'll go to File and Print. Now I want you to notice the print preview. Even though I can see all the data, there's one thing missing here are the phone numbers. And they have gone, but if you come down here at the bottom of the page, this now says page 1 of 4. And if I left click beside the 4, I'll come up to page 2. Not all the names are on the first page. There's like four or five of them on page 2. I click on page 3. There's part of my phone numbers. I click on page 4, are the rest of them. So if I hit the print button right now, I would get 4 pages of printing, and all my printing would be kind of different places, and it'd be hard to understand. Needless to say, this is not what I want. So what I wanted for you to do is go down to the left click on the page setup, the bottom of those commands. We'll get that little box I showed you a minute ago. And because the phone numbers have gone to the next page, I want to change my margins. So I'm going to left click on the Margins tab. And if you notice, you have a top and a bottom margin, a left and a right, and a header and a footer. Right now for my left margin is 0.75 inches. I'd like to click on the down arrow twice, make that 0.25 and say OK. If you notice, all my data moved over to the left side. And unfortunately, I still don't have my phone numbers. So I'm going to go back to page setup and left click on margins again. Now I'm going to adjust my right margin to from 0.75 to 0.25. Let's say OK to that. The phone numbers are back. If you also notice the number of pages, I've reduced that to 2 pages. If I click on page 2, then I get those other 4 people. So now if I hit the print button, I'd only have 2 pages of information. There's one other thing while we're in the margins. Let me show you another options. Left click on page setup. There's also left click on margins. I want to center this on the page. If you notice, the edge on the left side is not the same as what's on the right. So I'm going to left click on horizontally, say OK. and that moved slightly to the right. So now I have my data centered. Here, I'm trying to make this look good. So that takes care of the margins part of it. So let me advance my other computer. Now let's take a look, a little bit more at this page setup. I'm going to left click on page setup again. And this time I went to the page tab, and notice up here the orientation. I have a portrait. This is just like I did before. If I left click on landscape, it'll be landscape mode. And even though my margins are set at 1/4, 0.25, they're equal on both sides because they're horizontal. This is one that you do not have a back button for, but you do have this option in the commands. Right now it says landscape orientation. You select that little arrow, you can go back and select portrait. But that's not all I wanted to show you within the page setup on as far as page goes. Right now, we have in our print preview 2 pages. I can actually adjust this where I can actually fit, and this is down here, the scaling. I left click on the fit to, it defaults to 1 page by 1 page, 1 page wide by 1 page tall. And if I select that and I click on the OK, now if you notice down the print view, it's page 1 of 1. So if I printed this now, I'd have 1 page of printing that comes out. That would make me very happy. However, I got many more things to want to show you. So let's go back to I'm just going to be going back and forth this page setup to show you all these options. I'm going to go to page, and if you notice when I go up here, it says adjust to just before the fit to. It now says 92%. I actually squeezed down all of my printing into 92% of where I was at. I'm going to go back and type in 100 and say OK. Wow, now I went to 9 pages. I don't know what I did. Wow. I absolutely have no idea what just happened.
You angered the Excel people. That's what you did. You made it mad.
I've made it very mad. Go to my page. Oh, here it was. You know what I did? I typed in 199%.
Oh.
No wonder I have 9 pages. I told you I can't type. So I'm going to try 100 and say OK. Now we're back to 2 pages instead of 9. That one threw me for a loop. Okay. If you notice right now within the data, and this is all the data from my spreadsheet, I have not adjusted anything. I have a title up here, my address book, all the data, because so far I'm printing everything. What I'd like to do now is go to the header and footer. So I'm going to left click on page setup. This time go to that 3rd tab, header and footer. And what you get when you see header and footer is a blank header and footer page. And if I put something in, I would have, create a header, which is right now, if I look under header, there is none. Go to that arrow beside header. I get several options. I can scroll through these. Let's say it comes up with the title. I wanted lesson 3, part B. Put it in there. You now have a header added to, to your spreadsheet. I'm going to go back to page setup, header and footer. And I'd like to keep this as none, because I want to select none and say okay. Header's gone away, because what I want to do, I want to do something that's even a little bit more fun. And I get the same options for headers or footers. I want to go to a custom header. The custom header is pretty neat. This allows you to have a left section, a center section, and a right section to your header. So we can have a whole lot more information here. And if you notice above there, there's a whole bunch of icons. And if you hover over them, you're going to notice it's going to give you the names. If you look in your lesson plan, lesson 3, page 20, I have all of these called out. You know, I've given their names to you. So what I want to do in the left section, if you notice my cursor is all the way at the left side of the box, I want to add in the date. And the date happens to be the 4th one over. What looks like a 7. Click on that. And quite honestly, that does not look like August 27th of 2020. It looks like an ampersand and date. And what this is, not to fool you, but this is a code within Excel. So that when I save this, anytime I would come back to it, it's going to print the current date. So if I print it today, it'd be August 27th. Print it tomorrow, it'd be August 28th. So this means you don't, with your header, you don't have to go back and change it from day to day. So anytime you print this spreadsheet out, it's going to print the current date. If you wanted to type in the, August 27th, 2002, you could type that in there directly. But I just want to show you that command. Now let's go over here to the center section. Click on that. Should see your cursor blinking in the center of the center section group. On this one, I want to change my font because this is going to be a title. So I'm going to go over here to my font, which is that letter A. This should look very familiar with what we've been doing in the font group. I'm going to take this, and unfortunately I can't get to T by clicking T. I'm just going to scroll down until I get to my T's, and I'd like to select Tahoma. So I've selected Tahoma for my font type. Then I want to do several things here. Font style, I'd like to make that bold. So left click on bold. Then my size, I'd like to make that 16. And I just want to show you some of the features. Underline, right now it says none. Let's put a double underline under it. And if you notice there's a little preview box down here, it's showing you what you're going to see. Now say OK. And like before, we added the formatting in, but we most certainly have not added any text. So I'd like for you to type in the words, my address book. When you type that in there, you should see that it's font's bigger than what you had in the left section, 16. It most certainly is bolded. Trust me that it's Tahoma. And you also have a double underline. You can see it's like a preview to let you know what's going on. Now let's add something to the right section. And you notice my little cursor is now blinking at the right side of the screen. This time I want to add the page number. And that happens to be the second icon. And you see this ampersand and page. So as my page numbers change, they'll add to it. So as my document changes, now what I want to do is want to left click OK. And if you notice up here, you can kind of see the 827 my address book and 1 is what it would currently look like. I'm going to say okay to this. Now take a look at the top of your print preview. You should see your custom header added on there. All right. And let me show you something. If I go backwards to my spreadsheet, click that back button, my spreadsheet has not been altered. That second My Address Book is not there. It's only there when we're in the printing mode. I just want you to notice we haven't changed any of our data. It's all exactly the same. So I'm going to go back to File and Print. And the last tab I want to show you is a page setup. So we're going to go to Page Setup and left click on Sheet. And this is where we can define our print area, whether we have rows repeated at the top or columns repeated at the top. When I go in to the page setup mode in this area, if you notice, all three of those are grayed out. So I really can't do anything with them in this mode. But I do have some things down here that I can add if I want. I can add grid lines, which will make it look like your spreadsheet. I can do a black and white. If you have a color printer, this will save you some ink. You could do draft quality. Here again, that would save ink in your printer. I can also click on row and column headings. This would make it look like your spreadsheet where you have the columns A through Z and 1 through 50. Not going to do it for this one, but if you're trying to do an example of a spreadsheet, that would be real handy to put those in. Also in your page order, when you have more than one page, this one is going to go down from page 1 to page 2, go all the way to the end of the first column of pages, jump over, and then do the next one. I could change that to go over and down. For this one, it won't make any difference. So I'm going to say okay to this, because what I want to do is I want to set my print area, but I cannot do it here. So I want to say okay. What I want to do is go back to my spreadsheet. So hit that back button. I want to go back and reselect all my data. I'm only interested in A6 to G49. So I'm going to go back and reselect everything. And one of the things I'd like to do here is to correct some of the things that are in what we saw in our print preview. Like, for example, the My Address Book came up twice. It's somewhat hard to see the difference between the titles, the names, last names, and the actual data. And also, if you take a look at, between your zip code and the phone number, that's also fairly difficult to see. So when I have my A6 to G49 selected, I want you to press down the Control+1. This will bring back up my Format Cells box. I want you to left click on the border. This is where we were yesterday. I'm going to have you select that medium weight line, that third one from the bottom, on the right side. Select that type of line. I'm going to go back, select outline. See, it puts an outline around my little preview. And then just underneath there is the vertical line. I want to select that also. Then I'm going to say, say OK. I'll click outside my data. Now I've put an outline around everything, and I put vertical lines. So with a little bit of luck, I've separated my zip code from my phone numbers. Is one of the reasons for this. I'd also like to select cells A6 to G6. And once you've selected those, let's go back to the Control+1. Notice it came back to border because that's where we left it. This
I
time,
can't hear you.
can't hear me. Wow. I'll scream.
I can hear you. Can everybody else?
Martin, I don't hear you, Martin.
Okay, I'm sorry, Charlie, but
We hear you.
Yeah, I can hear him.
okay. Charlie, did you turn your speakers off? Don't know. Sorry that we've lost Charlie. What I'd like to do when we're in this format cells group within the border tab, I want to, this time, let's select that double line at the bottom.
So that was me.
Welcome back. And once we've selected the double line, I want to go for the underline, which is that one right across from automatic. In your example, you can see that. And I'll say, okay. I'm going to click outside of the data. Hopefully that double underline has separated my titles from my data. That's, this whole thing to enhance this. Now I need to go back and reselect A6 to G49. And now what I want to do is talk about just, looking at the being able to only print part of my spreadsheet. So this time I've got that data selected A6 to G49. I'd like to go to another tab on the ribbon, the page layout. So left click on the page layout. And if you notice in page layout, there's a page setup grouping that looks just about like what we had when we went to page setup, within print preview. I'd like here to select the dialog box, that little box at the bottom right-hand corner. And this looks just like my page setup I had before. I'm going to left click on sheet. And if you notice now, the print area, the rows repeat at top and the columns repeat at top are not grayed out now. So I want you to go over and left click on that little symbol at the right of print area. And for some reason, it just never seems to work.
Mhm.
But what I'd like for you to do is type in here, A6 colon G49. And it doesn't make a difference if it's capitals or small. And I've never had, it's supposed to come up there and have this done automatically. But I've typed that in, I'll press enter. And you notice it gets in my box. Now I want to come down to the rows repeat at top. And what I'm interested in is our title row, which happens to be A6, which would be the first line in our data. I need to type in one cell from that row. So I'm just going to type in A6. And then I'm going to say OK. Now what I want you to do is go back to the file and to the print. Let's take a look at what we have here. This should be almost a finished product. If you notice that second address book from the spreadsheet is gone, that's because we defined our print area from A6 to G49. That's only the part of the spreadsheet that we want. But we do have our header. We have our date, our title, and our page number. So what I'm wanting to show you this with all these options within the print function is what we can actually do to clean this up and make this something we want to present to somebody. It looks a lot more professional than what we started with. And also, if you notice, we're now page 1 of 1. By starting at row 6, I have eliminated the first 5 rows, which beforehand we had like four 4 people that were on page 2. Now everybody's on page 1. I've actually basically eliminated rows 1 through 5. Hope I haven't confused anybody right through here, because I want to do a couple more things. But here again, I encourage you to look at this print preview before you ever hit the print button. If I printed it now, this is what I would get. And this is what if you have one at home, want to use your printer, feel free to print it. But I want to show you something, another way to take a look at this. Let's say we were only interested in part of our spreadsheet. So I'm going to go hit the back button and go back to the spreadsheet. And if you notice that we're still in the page layout tab and everything's selected, this time I want you to go to the print area, left click on that, and you get 2 options there. Set the print area or clear the print area. I'd like for you to clear the print area. And now I'm going to go back there to the print area. And I want to select set print area. And I should, when I print area.
Select your area first.
What about?
Select the area first, then hit.
Very good. So let's say I wanted to select cell range A6 to G16. Just go from Bill Adams to Cordell Kaufman. Now, if I go up to my, thank you, Charlie.
Yep.
I go to my set print area, click on that. Now let's go back to the file and print. Notice now I've only got those first 10 items. So here again, you could have selected some. I'm going to show you how to select something out of the middle next. So I go back here. I'm going to go to my print area. I'm going to clear my print area. Let's say I want to go from A19 to G29. Willie Etheridge to James Van. This time, all I have to do is select the data. We go to File. I go to Print. And
Oops, you didn't set it.
I didn't need to set it.
Oh, okay.
I have a trick here.
Oh, yes. All right.
If you notice in the settings, it says Print Active Sheets. I select that. And then I click down Print Selection.
Yep.
I still have my header, and I still have my titles, but I've only printed out of the middle of that spreadsheet. So that's all you have to do if you want to print, something from the middle. So I'm going to go backwards, and my print area, I'm going to clear it, and I'm going to go back and reselect everything. So then I'm going to go to set print area, go to File and Print. Now we're back to where we were. We print our entire spreadsheet, because basically I want to leave you with this one so you have your full spreadsheet. Does anybody have any questions? I know I've rambled on for a while, but I hope I've shown you the pieces and parts of printing that will make your document look far better than just hitting the print button. Say, all I have to do now is click on the print button, have my printer turned on. This is what I'm going to get. So let us do the back. I'm going to go to File, do a Save As, go up to Documents, click in front of the L on Lesson 3 Part B, type in the word My, put a space in there, and click on Save. This should have taken you through, the pieces and parts of printing. Let me stop sharing for a second. Okay. I'll go back here to I want to share this again. kind of review what we talked about today. There we go. First thing I wanted to talk today about was using Excel's help feature. Using that F1 key on your keyboard will get you there. It will virtually answer any question you have. If you type something in, you didn't get what you were looking for in all the options, type a little different, question or phrase in there to get what you want. Talked about absolute and relative cell addressing. Anytime that you have an absolute cell, it's going to start with the $, column number or column letter, $, row number. And here again, that's is useful if you're using formulas and you want to have a constant value. We added a centered title across our spreadsheets. In our example, we selected 2 rows and selected the cells that were directly above our data, and we used the merge and center function. That'll clean up your spreadsheet quite a bit. Then we talked about adding color to the spreadsheet. Adding color, you can either add the fill color, which is that little paint bucket, or you can add the font color, which is the letter, usually it's letter A. Then I talked about adding comments to a cell. You can add a comment to any cell within your worksheet. It doesn't even have to have any data in it. But here again, sometimes if you're trying to explain what you did, or you may be reviewing somebody else's work, you can add a comment, to clarify it, and you'll see that little red triangle in the top right-hand corner. Then we got into the printing. I had you change the font and font size. That was just basically so that you could use some of the more of the commands up in that font group. We talked about print preview. Within print preview, you'll see exactly what you're going to get. Then we had that little icon for page, or little word for page setup. Had page, we had margins, header and footer, and sheet. I went through each one of those, showing the example that I had, and then we actually set the print area. Selecting a printer, you just go to the list of printers and print the spreadsheet. You click on the print button. Does anybody have any questions about anything we talked about today? Feel free to ask. No questions? Well, we have now been through 3 lessons within Excel. They call this Excel 1. This is the first half of the course. If I went back to the first day, we looked at the basic features. This was Excel 101. I wanted to get you the terminology, make sure we understood what we were talking about, with Excel. If you use the terminology, especially when you use the help, it'll be a great value to you. Yesterday we talked, went too fast. Talked about organizing and formatting the worksheet. And I've tried to, basically try to repeat some things just so you get some practice. And then today we talked about these additional features. So I do appreciate all of you attending Excel 1 for 3 days. I certainly hope I've got you a good fundamental understanding of Excel. And in about 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to have Excel 2. And I certainly welcome you all back, for that course. And I want to thank you. You've been a great audience. I wish sometimes you ask more questions, but I'm just happy to have you here. So
I think that's a very smart audience.
Yep. Yeah, you guys are easy to talk to because there's nobody's all confused, and I hope you fully understand everything we've been talking about. And one of the things I want to tell you about Excel that I cannot overemphasize, you need to practice Excel, or you tend to forget it, and it's like, I know I can do certain things, but how do I get about doing them? And that's where the help feature comes in. But here again, there's nothing like creating your own worksheets and playing with some of these, functions we've talked about. I encourage you to go through and use the book. I keep this as a reference material. There is an index in front of each lesson that will, if you have a question about how to get to something, it'll get you right to the page number. And hopefully everything that I have talked about in the class is in your book. I want you to leave you, some information to work with. So thank you very much. I've enjoyed it. I hope that everybody has gotten something out of this.
Yes, thank you very much. Definitely.
You're more than welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really nice to meet you all.
Nice meeting you, Nora.
Nice to meet you.
And I just wanted to ask, how will I know when Excel 2 starts? So will I receive an email or anything?
You are on my list now, Norin.
Okay, right.
I will email you as soon as we get those dates booked, and you'll probably see it in Eventbrite as well. It will pop up that your next session is there. But on behalf of Region 4 Area Agency on Aging and the Campus for Creative Aging, thank you so much for joining us. You guys were an awesome practice class. We just couldn't ask for better students, nor could we ask for better instructors. So I think it was a win-win all the way around. And we really do truly hope that you will join us at our next Excel 2.